because my next guest just testified before a federal grand jury. He says he was in possession of a trove of digital evidence from Diddy's freak-offs and parties.
Combs' legal team vehemently denied the accusations on his behalf, while the rapper continues to be held in a Brooklyn jail since September, awaiting his May 20th.
Oh my God! You won't believe the shocking story I'm about to tell you about Shaw Diddy Combs and his mother Janice. It's a tale that will absolutely blow your mind. We're talking family drama, legacy, and one very unconventional childhood. But here's the real tea that's got everyone buzzing. Word on the street is that the FBI might have Janice in custody. Can you believe it? They're saying she could have been pulling strings behind the scenes, enabling some of the very behaviors that have put Diddy in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. Everyone's dying to know, what did Mama Combs know? And did she actually shape her son's controversial choices? Trust me, this story is messy, shocking, and absolutely captivating.
Well, certainly there's a lot of information that needs to be substantiated, investigated, and those kinds of things. But when we look at people who become offenders, we oftentimes see early exposure to whether that's or actual behavior, and we oftentimes see that within the family.
Let's rewind this scandal back to where it all began, Mount Vernon, New York, where little Shaw was growing up under the watchful eye of his single mother. Janice, honey, was something else. A former model and teacher's assistant who refused to let life knock her down after losing her husband Melvin in the early 1970s. She put on this brave face, doing everything in her power to shield her precious boy from life's harsh realities. But darling, let me tell you, these new allegations suggest that maybe, just maybe, that protective shield wasn't quite as effective as she hoped.
You know, that kind of environment growing up in is going to have an impact on a child growing up. Now, it doesn't make excuses for what people do in adulthood, and the form that can take really depends on a lot of different things, including things such as what are the family values? Are the family values about, being open and honest about things, or if there's trauma in a family, do families deal with it, or how is that child raised?
Now get this. According to insiders and a juicy new documentary, the Combs household wasn't exactly the picture-perfect suburban dream it appeared to be. Janice, bless her heart, had quite the reputation for throwing these absolutely wild gatherings. We're not talking about your average family barbecues, honey. No, no, no. These parties were something else entirely, drawing in this fascinating mix of people from Harlem's gritty streets to the glittering world of high society. And while little Shaw was supposedly tucked away somewhere in the house, sources say these wild parties left an impression on him that would last a lifetime.
I think another question that we just can't ignore is the fact as a role of power. Because one question is, how does somebody become the way they are? And then another question is, how are they allowed to stay the way that they are? And I think that also speaks to this kind of, lack of accountability.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Tim Patterson, who grew up right alongside Shaw, spilled some piping hot tea in that Peacock documentary, Diddy, The Making of a Bad Boy. The way he describes these parties at Janice's house, Lord have mercy. Picture this, people lounging around half-dressed, music blasting through the walls, and this intoxicating atmosphere of pure, unadulterated chaos. For young Shaw and his friends, this was just their normal Saturday night. But Patterson now says, with the wisdom of hindsight, that these wild times might have warped their sense of what was acceptable behavior.
Still pretty early in the proceedings. I think it's only been about a month or a month and a half since he's been arraigned and held in detention. And so the investigations are always going to be a continuous and ongoing process. I'm sure at this point there's been an exchange of discovery. And not only that, but I think there's been a gag order placed on the attorneys with information that they can and cannot share. But more importantly,
and honey, this is where everything starts to make sense. Those infamous freak-offs that everyone's talking about in court documents, they're practically carbon copies of those early house parties. The parallels are absolutely stunning. The same anything-goes atmosphere, the same colorful cast of characters, and those same blurry boundaries that everyone's whispering about. Now, Janice has been adamantly denying any influence on her precious son's adult escapades. But darling, when you put those parties side by side, it's impossible not to raise an eyebrow or two.
We're monitoring another push to free Sean Diddy Combs tonight, with his legal team citing new evidence in an updated bail proposal. The music mogul agreeing to around-the-clock security and cutting out contact with basically anyone but his legal team to get out of jail ahead of his trial scheduled for May of next year for charges he allegedly coerced and abused women for years.
Now let me tell you something even more shocking from Patterson's revelations. The sheer variety of people passing through that Combs household during these parties, it's absolutely mind-boggling. We're talking glamorous socialites rubbing shoulders with some seriously dangerous characters. And here's the truly scandalous part. Patterson hints at moments when they'd accidentally stumble into private rooms and witness things that would make your jaw drop. Can you imagine exposing a child to all that? It paints such a heartbreaking picture of young Shaw, thrust into this adult world way before his time. A world where absolutely nothing was off limits.
Then if he does this new, quote, robust bail package, you can avoid and evade. And he is very connected with people that can help him avoid and evade. I'm not saying he will, but I would be surprised if the court grants him a bond. When the federal government wants you detained, you are normally detained, and here it was a very far-reaching situation that he was involved.
Now, Shaw himself has opened up about this in past interviews, and it's absolutely fascinating. He's always going on about how his mother's sacrifices inspired him, praising Janice for teaching him about hard work and resilience. But darling, there's more to this story than meets the eye. In one particularly revealing interview, he shared something that'll make your skin crawl. He started seeking attention from women when he was just 4 or 5 years old. He talked about how his mother's friends would cradle him on their laps during his video schedule, and while he tried to paint it as innocent childhood memories, critics are saying these experiences shaped his future behavior in ways nobody could have predicted.
So remember when I said Diddy mother might be the originator of the freak offs? All right, so apparently tomorrow there's the Peacock is dropping the Diddy documentary. It's called Diddy, The Making of a Bad Boy, and the doc gets into Diddy's childhood and his experience growing up in connection to the lawsuit and assault allegations he's currently facing.
And trust me, this story only gets juicier. As Shaw grew older, he started creating this world that was practically a mirror image of his wild upbringing. Just like Mama Janice's house was Grand Central Station for all sorts of characters, Shaw's adult life became synonymous with these absolutely outrageous parties and larger-than-life personas. He built an entire empire around pure indulgence. But honey, as these recent allegations suggest, the line between celebration and exploitation might have gotten dangerously thin.
That's it. You know, if it is privilege, of course they won't. But if it really is what the prosecution says, that has nothing to do with the case, or even worse, it's actually evidence of witness tampering, because we all know the attorney-client privilege, there's a crime fraud exception. You can't use your lawyer to perpetuate a future or continuing fraud or crime. So if the documents are what the government says they are, they're going to get them again. And again, it's just going to be a matter of days, because I don't expect
the connection between Janice's rumored arrest and these explosive allegations against Diddy? Well, darling, it's complicated. While we don't have official confirmation about Mama Combs' involvement, the speculation alone has everyone's tongues wagging. Could Janice have known what was really going on at her son's notorious events? Did those wild parties from his childhood somehow set the stage for the behavior he's now being accused of? These questions have been fueling the gossip mills for weeks, and honey, the tea just keeps getting hotter.
So there's a few things going on. First is the privilege issue. The judge will decide whether the documents are privileged or not. If they're not, they're going to go to the government. If the documents are not only not privileged, but they're evidence of witness tampering, then a few things can happen, all of which are bad for Sean Diddy Combs. First, of course, he could face obstruction of justice charges in a superseding indictment.
Now let's talk about how Janice has been handling all this public scrutiny. She's been defending her son like a mama bear, calling these allegations nothing short of a public lynching and begging everyone to hold their judgment until all the facts come to light. In her statement, and this is fascinating, she admitted that Shaw isn't perfect and has made his share of mistakes. But notice how she carefully dodged addressing those more scandalous accusations directly? Critics are saying her defense walks this delicate tightrope between supporting her son and flat-out denial, leaving everyone reading between the lines as new details emerge. The impact of these childhood experiences? Absolutely mind-blowing. you can't help but see the shocking parallels between Little Shaw's childhood and the empire he built as Diddy. It's like history repeating itself. The same wild freedom, the same excessive lifestyle, and those same blurred lines that everyone's talking about. The through line from that boy in Mount Vernon to the mogul now sitting in a Brooklyn detention center is just undeniable. And with these whispers about Janice's arrest, well, honey, this story is far from over. This isn't just about Diddy anymore, darlings. We're talking about an entire network, a system, and a circle of people whose roles in his world are as mysterious as they are fascinating. The real question isn't just about what Diddy did or didn't do, it's about who helped him, who looked the other way, and who's suddenly finding their voice now that his empire seems to be crumbling. And then there's the inner circle, the people who worked alongside Diddy throughout his career. Former bodyguards, assistants, and even chefs are coming forward with stories that'll make your hair stand on end. One of the most shocking revelations comes from Roger Bonds, a former bodyguard who claims he witnessed Diddy's temper firsthand. He alleges he saw physical altercations, including one particularly disturbing incident involving Cassie Ventura where he had to step in. While Bonds is speaking out, others in Diddy's camp are suspiciously quiet. Some say they're terrified of retaliation, while others whisper they might have helped cover up questionable behavior. The lawsuits against Diddy paint an absolutely chilling picture of his relationships. Cassie Ventura, who spent over a decade in a high-profile relationship with him, was the first to break the silence with a lawsuit that opened the floodgates. Her claims of manipulation and exploitation have been echoed by others who found the courage to speak up. And here's what's truly shocking. We're talking about over 40 civil lawsuits, with more expected. Tony Busby, the prominent attorney representing many accusers, describes these allegations as part of a pattern spanning decades. Both men and women are coming forward claiming they were pressured into compromising situations. But darlings, the civil lawsuits are just the tip of this scandalous iceberg. The criminal charges Diddy's facing are absolutely explosive. The indictment includes accusations of conspiracy and coercion, charges that could put him behind bars for a very long time. Prosecutors are saying his sprawling business empire was actually a front for something far more sinister. They're particularly interested in these so-called freak-offs, events that former attendees describe as elaborate and deeply unsettling. According to allegations, these weren't just wild parties. They were about control, with disturbing accounts of people being pressured into participating. Now, here's where it gets even more intriguing. While Diddy might be the star of this scandal, he certainly wasn't working alone. Reports suggest that certain members of his inner circle were actively involved in organizing these gatherings, while others knew exactly what was happening but chose to stay silent. The full extent of their involvement is still unfolding, but one thing's crystal clear. This was definitely not a one-man operation. If Diddy built his empire on indulgence and power, there were plenty of helping hands maintaining it. The legal troubles have exposed more than just Diddy. They've revealed deep issues within the entertainment industry itself. Those coming forward describe feeling trapped in a system that valued power and profit over accountability. This scandal raises serious questions about whether real change will finally come to the industry or if it will simply become another forgotten headline. Legal experts paint a grim picture of Diddy's future. If convicted, he faces potential life imprisonment. Even avoiding conviction may not save his reputation. With numerous lawsuits pending, his legal team may pursue settlements, though this strategy carries its own risks. The fallout extends beyond Diddy himself, affecting associates who've quickly distanced themselves. Former collaborators and business partners are severing ties, while others publicly condemn his alleged behavior. The fate of Diddy's empire hangs in the balance. Bad Boy Records, once dominant, struggles against newer labels. His ventures in fashion and media face uncertain futures. Yet perhaps most compelling are the brave individuals speaking out, risking everything to share their experiences. Their courage has sparked crucial conversations about power and accountability in the industry. As the trial approaches, questions multiply. Will more victims come forward? Can Diddy's legal team challenge the prosecution's case? What happens to his former inner circle? The saga of Shaw Diddy Combs and Janice continues to raise questions about maternal influence, childhood environment, and the blurred lines between celebration and exploitation. Share your thoughts below on Janice's alleged involvement and whether Diddy's upbringing shaped his later controversies. Stay tuned for more celebrity gossip and intriguing stories.